Hey, these are the results of the Danish Nationals 2024. There you go. So the results and the takeaways. I had very little time to do all of this because I was the TO. So it all for me it was a blur of things I had to do, things I had to be, things. So I didn't really get a lot of time to go and do a lot of meta analysis before the event. Also, I didn't think it proper since I was TOing to go into too much detail about what I thought. So I did a bunch of videos on the lists where I tried to keep my commentary to the absolute minimum and brought on guests to do the commentary. I of course failed miserably, but so this is my attempt at trying to catch up to some of what was happening there at the Danish Nationals. So the event itself was 42 players. We had actually sold 44 tickets. 2 players were unfortunately unable to attend. More on that in a little bit, because that was a tragic tale of woe in itself. And 1 player was sick at the time, but somebody stepped in. We had ringers in case some of dropouts. So we were always going to make sure that we had enough players. And I had a staff of what were we, 4 or 5 brilliant guys who all volunteered and came, and they acted as the kitchen staff and the bar staff, and they went around helping with everything. They set up the tables. They were just absolute gentlemen, and a couple of these had also signed up to do the ringer duty, so to fight if there was need, and there was need. We ended up having a player actually winning one of the awards, not one of the play like the tournament awards, but and he was a ringer at the event. So we had 1,200 points. There was 18 order dice cap, and you couldn't bring triplets for major powers. So you had to at a maximum of 2 of the same units. Now this was done by the EO group. So not me personally. I didn't choose this, and I actually descended at when we talked about doing this. I thought it was maybe not a good idea. It actually turned out brilliantly. It limited some things and allowed for a lot of other things, and especially I think it allowed for minor nations to be taken more and to compete on a more even playing field. We played 5 games over 2 days, with the games being 3 hours, so everyone had enough time, should have enough time. There were very few games that didn't finish, although there were some, and I did go around notching some people saying 3 hours is enough, you should be able to finish this. But in general, everyone was on their best behavior. I did issue a few warnings, but not for anything that was egregious. Most of it was for forgetting to do something, and one was for complaining. Basically, I was like, stop complaining and get on with the game. So and that was it for 42 players over a whole weekend from 6 different nations. To have that little to do as the TO was actually amazing. So for me, it was really well run. I could have done with one more TO, but I managed to get along with just me as the TO, and that it wasn't a problem at any point. I just wished I could have spent more times at certain tables and watched the games, basically. We recorded a bunch of the games, have all been released here on my channel. And unfortunately, one of the recordings didn't work. There was a few technical issues with one recording, and that meant that So like the finals, there was a little bit of technical issue with the camera and the mic to start with, but that I worked it out. But game number 4 had also been recorded, and that was one of the games that I actually really wanted to record because it was Italians versus Italians, 2 versions of Italians, the new Case Blue Italian. So we were trying to figure out whether or not the one version or the other version was best. And unfortunately, that game crashed. So there wasn't a file for me to release on that game, unfortunately. Ideally, going into the future, I would want to set up more tables for streaming, which we could do. At this venue, there was actually room for it. But as is, we recorded 4 games and I've released them here. So one thing other than I need to mention is that the event, we had stated beforehand that there would be a tournament winner. First place, second place, third place, a lot of other prizes were given out as well. And that the best placed Dane would become the Danish champion. This is done because, at least here in Denmark, there's a tradition for if you're the Danish champion, that means you're a Dane, because then you can fight on the Danish national team and stuff like that. A few people from abroad were like, does that mean we can't win? No, it absolutely doesn't. You can win. It's just that there is a special prize for being the best placed Dane. So, and that could be the first prize, or it could be any other prize, any other rank down the list, right? So a bunch of the Swedish people had come over. They were very nice and brilliant players as well. Some of them did really well, and all of them were extremely cool about playing at their first international tournament for some of them, although some of them we had met before at the WTC. We also had people from the UK signing up, from Germany, from Poland, from the Netherlands, and even Erin from Australia, who has done a European tour, basically, and fought in the Juggernauts event in the UK as well. So all of that was very, very cool. Cool to see so many guests. We hope you all enjoyed the game and the weekend. Now, the results. First, my predictions. I had not actually released these because I didn't want to spoil anything, but I looked over the lists. I looked over the players. Many of them I knew. So I could also start evaluating the players, like how good are these players, right? I thought before the event itself that Danny, the Dutch national team captain, or like star player, with his 16 order dice, greatest hits Americans. Is that the wrong list? I think it's the wrong list. Anywho, he had a very strong list, also Americans. He always runs Americans. And he is a really good player, right? He's won 2 tournaments in Denmark over this past year, so he knows what he's doing. I thought he would definitely get into the top 5. I also thought that Michael Fie of the Danish WTC team with his Polish Lancers, if his psyche was on top for that day, he could do really well. He has a thing where sometimes he will mentally just not be there for the game, and then he'll lose games. But if he's there, he's one of the best cavalry players I've seen. So he might do really well as well. Then there was Jordi of the Dutch team, who had brought 14 order dice assault focused Italians, the new M battalions from Case Blue. I thought that his list was really interesting, although maybe a little low on order dice, and Jordi himself is a very experienced player. Krzysztof of the Polish national team as well. He has been their captain, and he had brought his Japanese. He really knows how to play them. It was a horde, but had really nice elements of support. 18 order dice. For me, his list was a 4 as well. So very, very strong list combined with very strong players. For those of you who don't know, I'm talking 1 to 5 here. Not that the lists are like that I can categorize any lists into. These are 5 lists. You will automatically win tournaments. It's not what I mean. A 4 list is a very strong tournament list. A 3 is an average tournament list. A 5 is a list that I don't think could have be improved, could be min-maxed anymore. So that's the 1 to 4. 2 and 1 are thematic lists and bad lists that are actively bad, right? And the final player that I thought would come in the top 5 was Thomas Wurdemann, who had brought a strong, although not necessarily like the top list. It was a 3.5 for me. A cavalry-focused Japanese list. Had lots of different elements, 16 order dice. I mainly put him there because the list was good and Thomas is good. So these 5 were the ones that I thought would end up in the top 5. Now, what happened was Danny unfortunately had to drop out due to a family life emergency. So, like the day before, or was it Thursday, before the weekend, he called me saying, I am not coming, this just happened, I have to deal with this, I'm sorry, I'm out. Which is totally fair, life before games, right? But that did mean that my predictions were way off kilter, right? And on the Friday, Pim of the Dutch team also started typing me, and he had a tale of woe where first he was halfway to Denmark, his car broke down. Then he drove back home because he could just about get home. And then he actually got on a plane. Then the plane broke down. He had to get off the plane again, and then he finally quit, saying, "I'm not coming." But that was like the gods really didn't want Pim to attend the Danish Nationals. He had a very nice barbecue list actually, and could have done well, but he did not attend. So I was stumped to see who would end up in that top 5 now, because like my star players were a little bit off, all of them somehow. So, and then the weekend came, and there were amazing moments of glory, and I want to pick out like 3 stories from the weekend. The first one took place on this very nice desert island table that I had set up. That's my LVT burning in the background there. In one game, and this moment actually got awarded the prize for the most heroic action of the tournament. They were on their last dice. One player was winning and the other player was losing, and he was down by like 1 or 2 order dice, something like that. So it was very tight. And I can't remember if it was double envelopment, something like that. So one player has 1 order dice left and a few seconds left to go. The order dice pulled, it's his, it's the last dice of the game. He has an inexperienced lieutenant with an SMG that is in his own deployment zone in double envelopment, so he's badly placed, right? But the enemy, just like the second before, drove a jeep that had 2 small teams in it down into the deployment zone, scoring massive amounts of points. And that lieutenant was all that he had left to go on the turn. So the lieutenant moves up to the jeep, he shoots the jeep, he hits the jeep, he rolls a 6. He then rolls a 4, kills the jeep, rolls for the hits on the units inside, kill both of them, and win the game in one fell swoop with his SMG. That won Torben Davidson the most heroic action of the weekend. That was amazing. That one lieutenant won him the game and just shifted the points massively in his favor. The other moment that I want to talk about, unfortunately, we didn't get any pictures of the table that happened on, nor of the moment itself, but it was the most unheroic event of the weekend, where one player had rolled a foobar, and that foobar meant that he had to shoot a unit of engineers at his own mortar that was it was like 11 inches away in cover, and he was pinned down. So he had to shoot his mortars, and he was pretty likely to survive, except he rolled really well and killed his own mortar. And then, because it was engineers, he also had to roll for his flamethrower, and it ran out. So not only did he on that foobar lose his own mortar, but he also ran out of fuel on his engineers, and that model died as well on a veteran engineer unit. That was the most unheroic moment of the weekend. Got awarded for that most unlucky moment of the weekend. That was Jeremy from the Sweden, who had that happen to him. That was really unlucky. And then the final thing I want to pick out is here. Here you see Morten von Felt. He won the wooden spoon, which is like, well, he basically lost the tournament. He got a Gentleman's War, the starter box as well, for his trouble. We always give away the best prizes to the losers. And he has simply been such a gentleman about it. And it was a whole meme. He had put up memes about and taken on the name that he got at the event for bringing a mouse. So he is now the Mouse Man. That's his own term for himself here in Denmark. He brought a mouse to the Danish nationals. Everyone was like, what are you doing? And that mouse, it had fuel shortage. I think it ran out a couple of times. It didn't really kill that much, but he had such fun actually for the first time ever fielding a mouse in a tournament. And for that, I think he really, really deserved a Gentleman's War, that box. And I guess there were so many more other moments of glory that I missed out on because I was the TO. And I didn't really get to see all that much of it. But these I heard, and these were like, they stuck with me, these moments. Now, the results themselves, and I will link to Tourney Keeper down in the description as well, so you can go see the whole ranking for the event. Oh, and by the way, the army that you can see up here, including the trophy, this nice wooden trophy here, that was the army that won Best Painted. It was not, we had actually engaged a professional painter to judge the armies as well. It wasn't his pick, but the audience there picked this army above all others. It was massively this army that won the popular vote for Best Painted. So this was Martin Davidson's Australian army, and I think Martin has already made an appointment to go to Australia with his Australians and fight a game against Aaron Russell, the Australian player. So, and by the way, Martin is featured on this channel. We're doing a series of videos where I try to talk him through like how to improve after a tournament. Martin was the ringer player, and he won Best Painted. Now, the actual top 10 had Aaron Russell of Australia with his Soviets win the tournament, which was a surprise. But then again, he had just come off his win at the Juggernaut event, so we knew going in that he was a really good player, and he was. I actually played a game against him, although I was not very focused and conceded the game like 4 turns in, because I had a Gurkha charge just fail on me, and we were having to move and restart the tournament. I was running around, so I wasn't really paying it that much attention. I'm sorry, Aaron. But I also got to play a game against him. He knows his stuff, and you can see him play the finals against Michael Fier, featured on the channel as well. So he won the tournament. Second place was Simon Johansson from Sweden with his Japanese. He won the final game against Søren's Finns. I think that was the matchup. In game 5, and Michael Fier lost to Aaron in the final game, which pushed him down to 3rd place, but he was the best placed Dane. Martin Snyderman, who is the current Dutch champion, with his Chinese came fourth. Kent, who has been with us to tournaments abroad as well, came fifth and was the second best Dane with his Soviets. Søren Rulle, with his Finns, was the third best Dane in sixth. And then Michael Eistrup, his friend from Northern Jutland, with his Italians, was the best placed Italian player. So he actually won a game against the game I tried to record against Michael Christiansen's Italians, and proved basically that his Italian list was better, more or less. Thomas Wurdemann with his Japanese came eighth. Not a huge surprise. He had also been rated by me, as you saw. And Christoph with his Japanese, ninth. Again, not a surprise. Jordi with his Italians, 10th. Not a surprise. So maybe I should stick to like picking out the players that will end up top 10, because I got all four of my like top fives ended up in the top 10. Maybe I should just stick with that, because I get that, but yeah. Anywho, so these were the results, and for me, the main takeaways, by the way, here you have Michael Fie with his prizes. He got the very nice bronze nibble trophy from World Games. He got the pass along trophy of the Danish champion, and a medal trophy as well. Now, the main takeaways for me is good players will end up in the top over these events. When you play Swiss Draw and you have so many players, the randomness of a short tournament goes away a little bit. The good players will crop up to the top, and I can say this because most of these players have ended up in the top of other tournaments before. Right, so good players win events. Here we have Aaron with his... Was that supposed to... Yeah, sorry. Aaron with his first place prize. He got also a medal and a golden nibble trophy, and golden order dice, which are only available to those who win grand tournaments, right? Good players, though, will also bring good lists, or lists that suit them well. All the players in the top 10 had brought lists that I had rated at a 3.5 or higher. Although not any list that I had rated as 5 lists. So, but maybe that's due to the pack. I didn't really rate any of the lists as 5s. And there was always something I thought could be done better. But there we go. I also think that one of the things that we can learn is that Death Stars do not do well. We had both the mouse, we had a king tiger or something, and we had an IS something too. None of them really did well. Michael Christensen's huge Death Star of M Battalion troops didn't really fare well as well. The Death Stars were failing. I think we can call it now that at least for European tournament play, Death Stars are not a thing. They can't win tournaments. They can't even end up in the top 10 as is. Then we need to talk about Italians, whether they are in or out. I'm still on the fence about this one. The Italians didn't win, but none of the top players, like the top players, brought Italians. Jordi did. And let's go back here. Right. So we have Michael Eistrup. Michael, although a good player, is not one of the the national team players, right? So he had brought Italians, did very well. He does do very well in tournaments, but he was a bit of a surprise, really. And Jordi was not. I had rated him, right? But so like 2 players, one of them a WTC player, one of them not in the top 10 with Italians. It's inconclusive for me. It's not something that I think we can say this is conclusively something that will happen, right? but I think that there's something there, and a lot of other players thought so as well. Like there were 8 Italian armies, right? So Italians are definitely trying to get in, and we will see once the top players start training with them how they will fare. The final observation is that if you pull out Gurkhas from a meta, which is more or less was what this pack did, right? It was specifically targeted to rule out engineers and Gurkhas, more or less. If you remove those, then it opens up the meta. A lot more different armies are actually something that can have a chance. The Japanese suddenly had really good chances of ending up at the top. The Italians had good chances. Other infantry armies, other assault armies had chances. So that's one of the things that we can learn. Taking the Gurkhas away from the meta does change it, right? Other things will happen. So, yeah, which was very much as expected, I guess. Right. Here at the end, I actually wanted to take you to the lists. I just wanted to show you the top lists. Oh, there is Morten again with his prize. Where was the list? Oh, I will link the lists in the description, of course. So this is my folder for the Danish national lists. And here we have Michael Fier's Polish Lancers. He had 18 order dice, 1200 points. He had a second lieutenant, which was mounted. He had 2 HQs mounted. He had 9 veteran cavalrymen, 9 veteran cavalrymen, medic, also mounted. 9 veteran cavalrymen, 9 veteran cavalrymen, 9 veteran cavalrymen. So Lancers all the way, lots of Lancers. Oh, these last 2 are regular. So he had 2 regular and 3 veteran. He had a machine gun, inexperienced. That was mostly there to capture points, I guess. Medium mortar team, inexperienced. A marksman, regular. Anti-tank rifle team. Medium artillery piece, regular. Mostly to shoot people out of houses. A horse-drawn limber. A TKS tankette. A Vickers Type E tank. This is a pretty normal standard loadout for many Polish players. And then he had 3 utility cars just because he could. And there were like missions, double envelopment, where that was interesting. So that was the 3rd place list. That was Michael Fier's Polish. Second best list, or second best player, was Simon Johansson. Let me just find him. Here we go. He had brought his Japanese 18 order dice. So again, you see they actually use all the order dice here. 18 order dice, 1199 points. Second lieutenant, regular. This was a surprise, but no, it wasn't. It was Japanese. Not a surprise. What am I talking about? But what was a surprise was he mounted him, right? So he had 10 Manchukuo regulars, and he mounted his HQ and his Kempetai. Militia, green. Forward artillery observer, again a little bit of a surprise here. Engineer squad with a flamethrower. I really like the idea of putting engineers and flamethrowers in your Japanese lists. It does something that the other Japanese units don't do. Double bamboo spears, all of them green, so that the Kempetai had loads of work to do. Heavy mortar, inexperienced. Flamethrower team, so that's 2 flamethrowers. Suicide anti-tankers, 2 of those. A heavy howitzer with extra loader and spotter. Horse-drawn limber for that. Couldn't pull it, but it was an extra order dice. The Hogoku Go with MGs and a Horo assault gun. Very, very standard, but then again with a little bit of Kurogani and a truck with engineers and flamethrower. Very nice list and very well done for Simon. And then the winning list was Aaron's Soviets, which is here. There's a little bit of a mix-up here. It says 1203. It wasn't, because his horse-drawn limber was actually a mule, so it was cheaper. So he had brought an inexperienced lieutenant paying a tax, then scouts 5-man with submachine guns, very, very good for forward deployment, which he could do in many of the missions. A storm group, which actually turned out to be really, really useful, assaulting through all the terrain. Most of the tables were not heavy on terrain, but had enough terrain, so it was really nice for him to be able to assault through that. He also brought a forward artillery observer, which, normally I wouldn't do, but he had the points for it, so he felt like he could afford it. Double engineers with submachine guns, flamethrower, and single Fausts. So these are like throw-up units that can go up and kill stuff. Free rifle squad, heavy mortar with a spotter. He used the spotters excessively much for his mortars here. They were never out where the enemy could shoot at them. They were always behind cover, and he was shooting through his spotters every single time. Sniper team, anti-tank rifle team, which, yeah, that's always nice to have. Just give that extra pin for something. A single dog mine team with 2 men, which I believe he often put inside a transport. The M30 with a spotter, regular, so that he could fire indirectly with that as well. So he had 2 indirect shots with spotters. That was really nice. Although the multiple rocket launcher in several games didn't really do anything and only like shot once or twice. That was the horse-drawn limber, which was actually a mule. He borrowed one of mine because he had forgotten his own. A BA-20 with a flamethrower, Stuart light tank, truck, and gas jeep. That's it. A very, very standard, box standard. Like, you could see this every single time with Soviets, right? The choices are not very strange, but he was very, very good at actually focusing the fight in one point of the battlefield. That was what I saw him do at least 3 times, where he would wait out the enemy's deployment and then focus his force at one point, which is something I've been saying on this channel, do that. So yeah, congratulations to Aaron, congratulations to all who participated, to Michael Fee, the new Danish champion, and thank you all for coming, both from abroad and the domestic players. It was brilliant to see you all. Thank you so much. That was it for me today. Cheers.